Experts say the changing seasons can lead to deadly situations on our roadways. And TxDOT's newest campaign looks to make sure everyone stays safe, especially those walking. KCBD News Channel 11's Dylan Avia found some walking billboards near the Texas Tech campus today. He tells us what it means to be safe, drive smart.
That'll keep you safe at night.
89 people walked on Texas roads and died in pedestrian-involved crashes last October. And 773 total pedestrians across the state were killed in 2024. That's according to TxDOT, which is now sending street teams with walking billboards to 50 high-traffic areas across the state, with the goal of sharing important safety messages to drivers and walkers.
Crashes involving pedestrians are more likely than other traffic crashes to result in serious injuries or fatalities. In a crash, people walking are far more vulnerable than people in vehicles.
The team made a stop in Lubbock Wednesday to promote messages for both the people behind the wheel and the people roaming the streets. These include slow down, stop for people in crosswalks, and wait for the signal. Michael Tehran with TxDOT says there's a reason this month is sparking the start of this campaign.
As the sun sets earlier, more Texans commute in the dark, and drivers may have a hard time spotting pedestrians they would have easily seen during the summer.
TxDOT encourages pedestrians to cross the street only at intersections and crosswalks, follow all traffic and crosswalk signals, and make yourself visible by wearing reflective materials or using a flashlight when it's dark. For drivers, the message is even more direct. Stay alert, stop for pedestrians, and avoid any distractions.
While pedestrian-involved crashes make up only 1% of traffic crashes in Texas, they account for 19% of all roadway deaths in the state.
TxDOT street teams are hoping that with their efforts, these tragedies can be prevented, because even one death is too many. Dylan Villa, KCBD News Channel 11.